Hi, everybody. Welcome to Diamond Effect Podcast episode 179. Today, I have a fabulous guest for you, one of my clients, Craig Colby. Craig, welcome. Thank you for doing it
Very
with
happy
me.
to be here, Maggie.
Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit more to the audience?
Sure. My name's Craig Colby. I'm a television executive producer, writer, director, showrunner, and an author. My company is Colby Vision, and I help people make videos and tell their stories.
Wonderful. And I know you had an extensive career in TV, and then at some point you started your business. So if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit of your journey to that point and how did you start your business?
The journey is fairly typical television journey. I bugged TSN until they hired me a long time ago. I was there for 5 years. The same company that had TSN was launching Discovery Channel. I went to Discovery Channel when they launched because I wanted to learn how to be a different type of producer. I was with Discovery Channel for 10 years. Fantastic jobs, both of them. Loved Discovery Channel. When I left, I had the highest rated series in the history of the channel, the highest rated Canadian single program, 5th highest rated program of any type. Went out on my own, was a independent producer for a short 8 months. And then my favorite bosses from Discovery and TSN started a company called High Fidelity HD TV, where we launched the first HD channels in Canada. I was their director of production, did that for 6 fantastic years, loved it, loved those guys. They sold and made a ton of money, and more power to them. They mortgaged their houses to do it. We got bought. I was with the new company Blue Ant for 6 years as a director of production and then executive producer, overseeing 160 hours of nature content with international producers. And then they moved my job to the States, and they didn't move me with it. So
Okay.
at that point, I had some deciding to do, and I decided to create my own company, Colby Vision.
And how long have you run your company so far?
7 years. It'll be 8 years in May.
So now I would love to know what have you maybe been the most challenging parts of running the company? And second part to that question, still the same question. What have been the most rewarding part? And I am asking that for people to know. Our audience, some of them will be further into their journey. Some of them will be much earlier into their journey or are just thinking about the business. It's always good to learn from others.
Most challenging parts are the same challenging parts everybody has. Like businesses have ebbs and flows like lives do.
Yeah.
But when your business ebbs, you're not making money, right? That's hard.
Yeah.
There are customers who will come and go. There's one customer, I'll tell you, I'll talk about 2 individual hard times. One was when the pandemic started and I lost all my customers. And I lost my customers because they went out of business or they got rid of everybody. And I knew that during the pandemic, everyone was going to circle the wagons, and anybody who was in production were going to go strictly with their tried and true because they were dependable and reliable to them. And also they were going to take care of the people that had taken care of them. I didn't have anybody like that. I was staring directly both barrels in the face of nothing. It's pretty scary. So that's when I was 3 years into the business at that point. The business had been mostly me freelancing in the television. And that's when I decided I needed to market myself more. I did a little introspection and said, what do I do? What do I like to do? I like to create content. I like interviewing. So I created a few podcasts. I wanted people to know me as a writer. I created a blog and marketed myself. So that was getting that geared up was a hard point. There was a customer that hired me a few years ago it was after the pandemic. Dome Production hired me to get their streaming broadcasts of the National Lacrosse League up and running. And the National Lacrosse League found out in October of 2021 that they were going to have a season, and the season would start in December of 2021. So it was hitting the ground running, all hands on deck. And in the winter of 2022 were the Olympics. So I think a lot of the people that Dome would have hired who had worked in sports a lot were going to be working the Olympics. I was available. They told me I was their third choice, which is fine. So they hired me to start that up. I was an executive producer for Dome for 2 years on the National Lacrosse League. Loved it. People were really happy with my work, but they told me 2 things. 1, I was too expensive. And that they'd like to work with me again when they had more money. And 2, that it was up and running. It didn't need an executive producer anymore, which I sad to say is true. That's a big customer you've lost and a big
Mhm.
revenue you've lost. So I would describe that, even though I understood where they were coming from and I got it. And clearly they ran last season without me and they did well. That's disappointing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a loss of revenue. Those are two things that are hard. Also, the collapse of the television industry is hard. So those are the lows. What are the highs?
Yeah.
I'll go back to 2020 when I started putting out my two podcasts at the time, and I didn't get near 179 episodes. I did two podcasts. One was called Narrative Drive Time about storytelling because I wanted
Mhm.
people to associate me with storytelling. And I also did The Business Heroes because I wanted people to associate me with telling business stories. And again, it was during the pandemic when people were sitting at home, they had more time.
Mhm.
Those going out over LinkedIn and YouTube and all my social networks got the attention of somebody who I knew from university. I hadn't spoken to the guy in more than 30 years, but he called me up. He was at the Aga Khan Museum. They needed to do their fall fundraiser online. He was afraid it would look like a Zoom call. He wanted it to look like CNN. So he
Mhm.
brought me in. I had to do an RFP, request for proposal. So he brought me in to do the pitch. I won the pitch and I created a 2-hour show for them. Looked extremely professional. I actually did it through Dome Productions because I know the people there. And this was prior to the National Lacrosse League thing. And the show was seen, I think it was 40 countries, 17,000 people, made $860,000. And that felt pretty great. I also started working on the World Congress of Science and Factual Producers, boss of mine at Discovery Channel, saw what I'd been doing, saw the interviews. The point is the marketing that I did kept me top of mind. So
Mhm.
that was a real high point, having those come out. Also, I wrote and published my first book after the pandemic. It's done well. It's won 4 awards. So I would say that's a high point of all of this.
Mhm. Mhm. For majority of entrepreneurs, me included, the hardest part in that client acquisition because it's not something that's once and done. You always need to
Yeah.
think about it. You always need to market, and also there's points where you got to reinvent yourself. What worked one time or for a certain period of time, the circumstances outside of your control can change, and now you have to rethink that, and that can be hard. And at the same time, as much as we love our clients, at some point they might come to the point where they don't need us. And not
Right.
because we did something wrong or because they don't like us anymore. It's just their business changed or their life changed, whomever you're helping. And then they don't need us anymore. So that consistent look for clients, the marketing, the reinvention can feel hard sometimes. It does feel hard sometimes. And at the same time, when you actually do some great work and you get clients and you get to do also whatever you want to do in entrepreneurship, I think that's something that I didn't even expect I would enjoy as much. That creativity, it gets so fulfilling, like writing a
Mhm.
book or having a podcast
Yeah.
or whatever. Okay. So let's get to storytelling. Many business owners now in the world of social media either are doing some video content or some visual content or are thinking about it and wanted to, but are scared or don't know what to do. So I would love to pick your brain on your expertise. And if you could share what a small business owner can do to show up better if they're already doing some video and tell better stories because as humans we're wired for stories.
Right. So to tell better stories, I was going to back up on some of the things you're saying there,
Yeah.
because in some of the work that we've done together, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I may be jumping that question here. We did some research on video production. 9 out of 10 businesses make videos. So if you're not making videos, you're at a disadvantage. Your competitors are. Of the 1 in 10 that aren't, 8 to 9 of those want to make videos this year. So it's something business wanted to do. And was it going to be worth it? Is it going to be worthwhile? 89 out of 10 say they're getting the return on investment that they want out of videos. My own personal story tells that. The videos that I made that were created put me top of mind in the industry. And it also helped me define myself. Are they going to work out? I didn't know going in, but they did and they have. So I would say you should be making videos. So there's two categories of making videos. I make them myself and I like it and I want to keep doing and getting better. And then there's, I don't make them and I don't know how to do it. Let's talk to this category first. I don't make them. I don't know how to do it. That's okay. You can get someone else to do it. And, that's one of the things that I can do for you. There are also other people I can recommend if my pricing isn't good, because I tend to do high end, or I can work with you and coach you. You can do simple, easy videos just to get out there. If you learn so you can either hire someone, and there are people out there, you can come talk to me. We can talk about my pricing. I can recommend some people based on what you want to do. But if you're doing them yourself, I can at least give you a few tips that'll help make them better. First off, a lot of people start videos as if they're a conversation with someone because they want them to be conversational, right? Which is always a good goal. But you have to think of them as a broadcast. So if you start with, "Hi, my name is Maggie Perotin. I'm a coach." Nobody cares about that. People care about themselves. So you have to start with a hook. You have to start with an idea that's going to intrigue them, right? So right off the bat, it would be something like, "Do you have too many customers?" And I'm going to talk about why I phrase that in a minute. So you need to intrigue them with an idea. Of course, nobody has too many customers. "Do you have all the money you need in your business?" No, I don't. And the reason I put those as no questions, I read a book by a hostage negotiator, and he said, always ask people no questions, because yes is a commitment and no feels like you have control. It's like when people call you and they want to sell you duct cleaning services. You will do anything you can to get off the phone. You will turn into the worst version of yourself to get rid of them, because they are trying to get you to say yes to something you don't want to say yes to. So give people no's, give people a chance to say no until they say yes. So questions are a good start, especially questions that I didn't know. Little bits of information are a good start. The videos that you and I worked on that I'm going to release in next year. One of the first ones is 9 out of 10 businesses make videos to promote themselves, but you don't. Why not? I want to tell you about the worst day of my life that turned into the best day. Oh, okay. What is that? So something intriguing. Once you've got someone's attention, then you can introduce yourself, or better yet, put a little lower third up that says who you are and what you do, so you don't have to waste time saying it. They can see it. Save it for the end, right? When you pitch your services. So give them a hug, give us some context, and then you can tell the rest of the story. So what's a good story for a business owner to tell? It's the story that I told earlier about the Aga Khan Museum, and also with Dome Productions. They needed someone to come in and get their production up and running. They were starting from a cold start. They needed to be on air in 6 weeks. They needed everything built up. I helped them all be successful. So when you look at who you are in these stories, you do not, to use a Star Wars reference, you do not want to be Luke Skywalker in the story. You don't want to be the center of the story. You want to be Yoda or Obi-Wan Kenobi. You want to be the one who helps the main character to their goal. And the best thing about these stories is you want the listener to see themselves as the main character. That's who you want them to relate to. And you are the one who helps them to the next step. Those are good stories to tell. You can talk about yourself, but I would sprinkle that in your stories along with the success ones, right?
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Because if it's just about you, your ideal client business setting, they're not going to see themselves. Okay, what's in it for me? Can they help me? They will never know if you don't share those other stories.
Right.
I love it. Thank you. So moving to questions like our work together. So I'm curious for you to share what made you look for a business coach, right? Like what triggered that? And then the benefits you've seen.
What triggered me looking for the coach was actually losing the National Lacrosse League business and the television industry really collapsing in the country. When my business has been at its best, I have had 3 main customers, and then television freelance work would come in. I lost one of my big clients, and the television work has not been reliable. So I know that I need to find more clients. And I also know that as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, and I put that in quotation marks because I still have trouble thinking of myself as an entrepreneur, because I've been what I was for many years in the
Mhm.
industry, hired executive producer, writer, director, showrunner sort of thing, like a TV guy. I'm a TV guy, a visual storyteller. Entrepreneur is something that I'm fumbling my way around in. To steal a record title from Sarah McLachlan, I'm fumbling towards ecstasy here. So I needed
Yeah.
some help in certain areas. I certainly needed help in defining value offering. It was what I thought it was, but it certainly helped me define it as someone who offers broadcast quality video production. And that's something that there's a lot of video producers out there, but not everybody can do what I can. So that's my value. Also in approaches to companies, also in how to get materials for marketing. I knew I needed all of those things, how to talk about myself, how to talk to other business customers. Those are all the areas I knew I needed help. Identifying different areas where
Yeah.
customers might be. So I
Yeah.
knew I needed help in all of those areas. That's why I needed a business coach.
Okay. Awesome. So now a follow-up question to that, because we definitely have done research, we've done the
Yep.
definition of your value proposition, how you're different and competitive to others in your industry. And we've also done strategy. Yes, we've
Yes.
worked on like warm audience and so on, but I believe that in certain industries, in certain business to business, and especially where you want to expand those connections building. Yes, we have connections in one area, but if we want to expand somewhere else and we don't necessarily have a connection that can introduce us or do that warm kind of intro that it's always the best, then the only thing you have left is cold reach out, right? It's also not an easy thing to do because you're trying to reach somebody who doesn't know you, like you, trust you.
Right.
There is a lot of, just like when we get approached by people who we don't know, like and trust, we think they're scammers, we think they want something from us, all those things, right? That you have to overcome to even start building that relationship. So my question to you is, how do you get yourself to do this? So it's not easy.
So we covered a lot of ground there. So I want to talk about a couple things before
Yeah.
we get to how do you get yourself to do it. The biggest thing I've learned in my entrepreneur journey is the know, like, trust. And the way I have used, especially LinkedIn, but any of my promotion is, and especially LinkedIn, is I want to use LinkedIn to get to know and move to like.
Mhm.
When I started my blog, here's everybody tells you write about tips and things like that. I wrote about values
Mhm.
because I thought there's nobody who coaches you in this. There's nobody who advises you in this. But I wanted to write about values because I wanted people with similar values to relate to. And I
Yeah.
thought that would move people from know to like. The way I got to know was by putting a lot of stuff out there. Very active on LinkedIn. I share all of my accomplishments. As a matter of fact, I will occasionally reach out to someone I know, someone I see on LinkedIn who I haven't met yet, to say, hey, we should know each other. There's a guy named Dan Gladman, who's a sports producer and director. So we went out for a drink. We know a lot of the same people. We've never met, but we got to know each other a little on LinkedIn. And I said, I really like what you're doing on LinkedIn. And he said, what is in my head? I don't want to do that. I do that because I need to. Right. So that is the big part of the marketing push is
Yeah.
the know to like. When I meet you, I want to move from to trust. So that's the market. And I promise I'm getting to sales.
Yeah.
But I always think of marketing and sales like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones or Star Trek and Star Wars. People who like one usually like the other, but they have a preference for one over the other. Right?
Yes. Agree.
So if you're in business, you need to do sales and marketing, but you
Mhm.
probably lean one way more than the others. So I'm more Rolling Stones, I'm more Star Trek, I'm more marketing. And I think a lot of that comes from being someone who creates content
Your
for years.
background. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. For sure.
And also, I like hot leads way more than cold calls. So I want to bring people to me. But that means for the sales part, I have to do a lot of work. A lot of the work is not actually the typing and reaching out. A lot of the work is in here,
Yeah.
right? A lot of the work is being a little bulletproof for reaching out and taking the rejection and making the lists and dedicating time each week to hopefully reach out to people you didn't know before. I'd say the best thing I've done is reach out on LinkedIn and try to connect with people on
Mhm.
LinkedIn. And even if they've said no to my approaches, If we're connected, now they're going to see my posts.
Yeah.
Now they're going to hopefully recognize me, know me, and potentially even like me if they see what they've got. So I haven't written many valued blogs lately. The work was too big and all of that. But when I do write it, the things are read pretty well, and they are always about uh, people and values and businesses and what should be done and right.
Mhm.
So anyway, sales reach out is really identifying, following up, and just what's grunt work.
Yep. Yep. It is. But as if you don't take it personally, especially in cold reach out, you're not seeing that immediate gratification, right? It's a long-term strategy where you might create a connection or start something and you might not see something for months and
Yep.
months, but then it will pay off at some point, right? So there's definitely a lot of mindset work about it or a lot of perspective about it to keep going while nothing seemingly is happening. Whereas if you
Yeah.
interact with people, at least you have a meeting, you have a coffee chat, you have a conversation, you have this and that. So like with warm audience, it's much more rewarding, much faster.
Planting as opposed to hunting, right?
Yes.
You got to plant it, you got to water it, you got to tend it,
Yeah.
you got to
Yes.
harvest it. When you hunt it, you go out and you shoot it, you kill it, you bring it home, you eat it,
Yeah.
right?
So it's more of a farming approach. You wanted to expand on something that we touched on, but maybe didn't go deeper into.
No, I'm quite happy to follow where you're going, Maggie. I think I said everything I need to say about those things.
Okay, so maybe share where people can find you and connect with you. And if there is any fun projects that you have or any books, anything you want to promote, go for it.
All right. So you can find me at colbyvision.net. Craig at Colby, or my email is Craig at colbyvision.net. At colbyvision.net, you'll find my podcasts. There's one podcast I didn't mention, which is Career Recourse. I created that in 2021 for people, primarily for people in my industry, but it's good for anybody who've lost their jobs because my industry is bleeding jobs. So when I lost my job, not only did I not know the answers to the questions, I didn't know the questions. So I created Career Recourse, where I interviewed experts who had all the answers to the questions I had, and I put it out online, and it's helped thousands of people get jobs, or thousands of people. Since then, I know one person who I worked with said he was out of work for 9 months. I ran into him at Loblaws, and he said he watched all of the videos and it helped him get his next job. So
Oh,
Career Recourse is out there. You can find that on my site. You can find Narrative Drive Time. You can find the Business Heroes. You can find my blog, Swiss account, because my nickname is Swiss. And so you can find there's a lot of things to look at and read. There's some samples of my work on there too. So colbyvision.net. This is my book, All Caps, Stories That Justify an Outrageous Hat Collection, which you can find online at Amazon and at Indigo. Or if you want a signed copy, you can come to me, because I believe my mother when she said I could sell a certain amount of copies, and she was being a good mom, not a savvy business person. So I have lots of copies left. People want them, and I can arrange to get them to you once the postal strike is. In the meantime, you can reach out to me through LinkedIn or through my website.
perfect. And we'll share all those links in the show notes or in the comments wherever we post this interview. And yeah, thank you, Craig, for doing it. I really appreciate it. And thank
Well,
you for everybody for listening.
thank you for inviting me on, and thank you for being such a great coach, Maggie.
Thank you.